No, with Hannah. Hannah, now you're used to it. You won't freak out anymore by going live or whatever because you've been through it again and again and again. You're like a
Third time's
super
a charm.
master of going live. Yeah. And it looks like it's working now, so fantastic. We always say in French we have that saying never two without three. So that's it, it's wisdom. Uh, well, now back to Norman. Welcome to a very special co-working that always work after the third times. Sometimes the first, but it depends. It's a podcast about what makes co-working special, and it's having fun, having troubles, and finding solutions. Real life. And this month, I'm welcoming Hannah Cooper from the Innovation Hub in different cities. We'll talk about it more. Hannah, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
And thank you for going live with me again and again and again. It's never ending, isn't it? It's like that movie, that day that repeats again and again.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited because there's been a lot of talk about nature, about what I call real remote, so remote work in very remote places. And that's really feasible now because of all the tools we have and so on. And yeah, but you not only in super remote places, you're, like I was saying, in two different places, but you started with Staunton, right?
Yeah,
Did I
so
pronounce
we
that well?
Stanton. That was pretty good. That was
Staunton.
pretty
Thank you very much.
good. Yeah, we are in Staunton, Virginia. We're nestled in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia on the east coast of the
Mhm.
United States. And it is a rural co-working space. So we're in considered to be in rural Virginia in a beautiful Shenandoah Valley.
Yeah, you were talking about how it's peak. Is it peak season? Is it summer, or is it more fall that's peak season?
We are in peak fall season. So as you are outside in this area of Virginia, the trees are bright yellow, orange, and red, and people come from all over the world to see the beautiful colors that are in fall in Virginia. It's lovely.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of people come here, and you were saying they're looking into outdoor activities like kayaking, hiking, and so on.
Yes, so that's super popular in this area: kayaking, hiking, fishing. Yeah, just exploring the outdoors. There's a lot of rock climbing, lots of outdoor recreation in
Mhm.
this area for miles and miles throughout the vally. hmm Yes,
No
my
time
family
to
and I
get
are going.
bored.
Yeah, my family and I are camping this coming weekend. So
Woo.
uh, we have three little ones. So my husband and I are going to
Yes.
take them out and go camp. It'll be a little chilly, but that'll be okay.
Hopefully, there's going to be sun.
Yes. Yeah, I hope so too.
And what was first for you? Was it this region, the Southern, the Pennsylvania, all that, or was it more co-working and you arrive into this area?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, Stanton was definitely selected on purpose. So the
Mhm.
founders of the Innovation Hub were serial entrepreneurs. They had a couple of different businesses that had started and then ended up closing for different reasons, and they had a game, actually, a board game that they created called Watch Your Mouth, and it is where you put a mouthpiece in your mouth, and so your mouth is spread open and you try to say phrases back and forth to your partner and during a certain time frame. And this
Yeah.
game, it did really, really well. It took off and was a bestseller on Amazon for a while, and they needed a lot of different resources really quickly, and they were hoping to eventually open a space that would have all of those resources in it, very easy for an entrepreneur. And they were uh, James Madison University graduates, which is a college, a university about
Mhm.
30 miles north of where we are. And so they thought, let's do this right in sweet Staunton in this rural area and see if it will work. And that was in 2018. And
Ooh.
yeah, the first space that they opened, I came on just after the first space opened in 2018. And that space was around
Were
4,000
you the
square feet.
first hire or one of the first?
No, I think I was
Oh.
technically the third hire.
Ooh.
Um,
Like I was saying, never,
yeah.
never two without three. Hmm.
That's right. That's right. So I think I was technically the third hire, but I'm not even sure. Um, so yeah, that's they lived close by, um, and they thought that this would be the perfect spot for a smaller
Yes.
co-working space, and it worked out so well. They continued to grow even in Stanton beyond that.
Ooh. And now it's not just Stanton, it's also
Harrisonburg.
Hessenberg. I was gonna say
Yes.
Hudson, but no. Ah, I got the first letter right. Well,
hmm
anyway. And
hmm
why that second location?
So Stanton grew really, really quickly during the
Hmm.
pandemic. We
Really?
start, yeah. So we
Wow, because
started
some
off,
places had to close, or I had heard both. Some places
mhm,
had to close, some were striving. So you were on the
mhm.
striving side.
Yeah, we did
Mm.
really well. We started out with 4,000 square feet in that smaller space, and then we jumped to an additional 26,000 square feet. So we have a two building complex in a little
Yes.
downtown area with about 30,000 square feet and lots of private office spaces. So a lot of people
Hmm.
during the pandemic were flocking to the more rural areas and the less densely
Yes.
populated cities.
Mm-hmm.
So they
Mm-hmm.
found us, and they were able to have quiet spaces where the doors closed behind them. And so we weren't your typical traditional co-working space in a larger populated area with lots of co-working. We kind of had an even mix of private spaces, private office spaces, and co-working, so people felt more comfortable.
Mm-mm.
Um,
That's great.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so you were striving, and that's why during the pandemic you decided to open a new spot.
Yeah. So the building that we're in is a beautiful uh, building that was renovated. I think it's from the 1920s. So that's
Hmm.
part of what we do as well, as we take old buildings and we make them new
Mm.
again.
Yeah.
Um, and we keep a little bit of history in them as well. And so we really love those projects. And so the building that we found in Harrisonburg is very similar in size, and we decided that things had gone so well here that we were going to move forward with expanding throughout Virginia. And Harrisonburg is about 30 miles north of us. They have a growing business community. A lot of people are relocating there. There's several different colleges and universities there as well. So students are graduating from there and they're contributing to the workforce. So it made sense for us to choose Harrisonburg as another space. And
Hmm.
we are hoping that if construction and the renovation goes well, we'll be open in early 2024.
Ooh, nice,
hmm
nice. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, big time coming. Let's go back to the beginning for now. And
Sure.
when you started, did you know about co-working? Have you worked in co-working before, or was it like your first experience?
Oh, that's a good question. I worked just before coming on board with the Innovation Hub. I worked with a business support organization called the Chamber of Commerce,
Yes.
and we worked alongside the Innovation Hub when they first opened to help promote them and support them opening their business.
Okay.
And so that's how I was introduced to the concept of co-working. But
So
in
you
this
have
area,
never worked with a co-working space before that?
right. Yeah. Before
Ooh.
this one. And then I fell in love.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, yes, I was introduced to this space through my previous job, and um, really loved the idea of this modern co-working space and the juxtaposition of it being in this rural area where things like that just didn't exist. And so
Yeah.
it was a concept that a lot of people around here were not familiar with, but it went exceptionally well. And the co-founders reached out to me when they were expanding to the larger building, and
Hmm.
said, "Hey, why don't you come and join our team?" And it seemed like an offer I couldn't refuse. It just seemed like so much fun. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
great. What looked fun from, because that was from the external point of view. Well, more or less because you were working with them before, but as an external, as an outsider, if I may say, and
Mhm.
then you joined the team. So first, when you were working with them, but not in the same structure, in the same entity, what looked like fun? What working for in a co-working for co-working looked like at that time before you
Mhm.
started working with them? What made you want?
Mhm. I really loved the idea of so many different businesses working in the same environment and
Mm,
um, sharing best practices from a social skills
mm,
level, but also I almost feel like it's innovation from within. They were collaborating together, giving each other pieces of advice that they wouldn't hear in their industry typically. So I really loved the community that they created with such a diverse business group within such a small space. So it was really interesting to see that. Even though I worked with businesses at the chamber
yes.
and I love that organization too, it was just on a much broader level. So to see them all together in a room
Hmm.
working, but also creating relationships and learning from each other, being from
Yes.
different industries, that was really special to me, and I think that
Hmm.
that really drew me to the project. Um, yeah.
A project there, and so that's before starting. After starting, did that view change? Did it evolve, or was it exactly like you expected?
Oh man, it was even better than I expected. So it definitely evolved from
Hmm.
it the idea of this position piqued my interest,
Yes.
and and then once I got started and people started coming into the building, obviously growing from 4,000 square feet to 26,000 square feet, the community got a lot bigger too.
Yeah.
So over the past couple years, our membership has grown. Oh man, it has grown so much. So I think now we have about 140 different businesses that
Hmm.
work in our space, just in Stanton. Um, and so to have 140 businesses represented from all different industries is
Hmm.
incredible. And then you make relationships with these people, which I'm sure a lot of folks talk about on your
Yes.
podcast. And you meet new people every day. You create these long-standing relationships and friendships with people that you wouldn't otherwise interact with or have the
Mm.
opportunity to meet. And I just think that's so special. So I
Yeah.
have such a deep love for the people in this building.
Hmm.
Um, they make it special.
Oh, and I'm wondering, what were you hired for at first, at the beginning?
Mhm. Business development. So it started out business development, working on getting the space full. And then
Hmm.
in addition to business development, we also had a community manager. So I worked
Yes.
very closely with her to get the space up and running smoothly and get all of our spaces filled. So being the business development manager of a
Hmm.
co-working space during a pandemic definitely was an interesting challenge to be
Position.
handed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that position quickly evolved to being the director of the space, and
Oh.
now
Hmm.
we're growing, so it's very exciting.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, and I understand you will stay in Stanton, and somebody else will be in the new location.
Yes, yes. So, well, I will technically travel to multiple locations throughout the
Ooh.
week. um, or have some sort of uh, uh, involvement within each space. And then there
Hmm.
will be a community manager in each space as well. So,
Yes.
yes, they're an important piece of our project.
Yeah. It's co-working, working together, so you're
Hmm.
not separate. But you can also say that you cannot copy paste just your space somewhere, so it's gonna be something different.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think each space that we open, it's there's going to be a different feel. There's going to be a different vibe,
Hmm.
um, based off of where they are geologically, and then also the community that makes them uh, that makes up the space. It's just
Yeah.
each one is going to look different, and that's exciting too. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
especially if you're renovating old buildings, meaning all the buildings will have their own touch, their own story, and their own quirk in a
Yeah,
certain way. Mm,
definitely. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, and so that's for the spaces. I had that amazing question in my head, and now it's somewhere else. Yeah, we were talking about the pandemic. So you were
Mhm.
striving. Then I guess after the pandemic, it was difficult because we were starting to go back to normal, even though what does that mean? I don't really know. But how was it for you when
Um,
office is starting to open again and so on?
mhm, mhm. Um, we have seen
Mm-hmm.
in the past 4 months, actually, which I don't know if I would call it post pandemic, but
Mm-hmm.
um, since things have kind of started to calm down,
Yes.
even more growth. So since we have opened our doors, we have continually um, tracked an upward trajectories in our
Yes.
membership numbers. So we haven't really had anyone fall off since office spaces were open because I think um, they have adopted the idea of remote work and also understand the importance of work life balance. So,
Mm-hmm.
allowing their employees, or even if it's an entrepreneur or someone who works for themselves, understanding the importance of work life balance and just doing what's
Mm-hmm.
best for them. And sometimes that might be coming into the co working space on Tuesday and Thursday and working from home on Monday,
Yeah.
Wednesday, Friday. Or people like me, I enjoy being in the office every single day, with
Mm-hmm.
maybe a work from home day once a month, and those are like my busybody tasks. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, so really, we haven't seen a fall off. If anything, we've seen an increase continually, even after the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic, because of how accepted remote work is now.
Yeah, it goes back to the very beginning of that conversation where you had your first contact with the co-working space when working with the Innovation Hub in your previous job. But now everybody kind of know about what is remote work, what are co-working spaces. Maybe less co-working spaces because for a lot of people, remote work still means working from home.
Yeah. It does. And I think that's where we get hybrid work.
Yeah.
So having that hybrid
Mm.
work schedule. And what
Yes.
I find is people will work remotely. They'll have the opportunity to work remotely, which for them is working from home. And there comes a certain period where we have people come in, and I think it looks differently for each person that comes in,
Hmm.
and they say, I just need a place to work that's other than my home office because I can't work at home all the time anymore. I'm too distracted, or I have to go and do the dishes and the laundry, or I'm thinking about this, and this task. And it's hard
Yeah.
for them to separate work and home. And so they're looking for a place where they have that option to come into the office if they need to.
Yeah.
And then once they come in, they see how cool our community is. And then I feel like they're less likely to work from home and more likely to work from our space.
What do you like the most with your community right now? It
I
can be a few
love,
things. You don't have to pick
yeah,
only one.
yeah. I love how our community are self starters. And by that, I mean we have a community that identifies problems and creates solutions on their own. We
Hmm.
have a working group called a nonprofit support group. We have quite a few
Ooh.
nonprofit people in our space. And that group happened fairly organically. We saw a need for just some support around that industry in this area. And it is a member led program that happens every other week now at the hub. It started with just a couple of directors of nonprofits and
Yes.
meeting every other week over lunch. And now we just had a group yesterday that were, I think, about 20 different people attended that support group.
Hmm.
So we also have an AI uh, uh, working group that spun up organically as well. And so
Yeah.
they're just self starters, and um, I find it very interesting to see that take place. Just people want to get together and to solve
Yes.
problems. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's
And
one thing.
that's a great thing, and that's really what co-working means. Getting
Mhm,
together in somewhere else, not your home, not your office, but somewhere else, and get done with it.
mhm,
Solve something, do something about it.
mhm, mhm.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah. And that's now. So you're talking about maybe opening the new space early 2024. I
four.
always
Mhm,
forget. I'm like, oh my God,
mhm,
2024. And I know you've been talking about maybe other spaces
mhm.
that you
Yeah.
might
So
travel every week between
yeah,
spaces.
yeah, and
I
in
love
it,
travel.
yeah, in this area, travel isn't bad. So.
Ah.
Um, At least not yet. The particular locations that we have on the
Mhm.
horizon that we know are going to happen are one of them is in another location in Waynesboro, which is about 20 miles east of Staunton. And then, of course, we have Harrisonburg about 30 miles north of Staunton. And where my family and I reside is in the perfect location to be kind of in between all of those areas. So the commute won't be bad. Um,
Yes.
but it's kind of this hub and spoke model where we're going to have larger innovation hubs that are these larger both in square footage and community.
Mhm.
Um, and then we're going to have innovation outposts. So those are smaller in square footage and smaller in community. And those will be a low touch environment. So we won't necessarily have a community manager there full time. We'll
Mhm.
have someone available virtually to help them in that space if necessary, but they will also be included or have the availability to and access to move about all of our spaces. So if they do
Mhm.
need to experience a bigger community, they can come over to the Staunton Innovation Hub and or the Harrisonburg Innovation Hub and have the ability to experience that community or the events that take
So
place inside.
there would be no one into smaller spaces.
If there is anyone, and we're sorting this out now, it will be very minimal. So
Yeah.
we will have somebody cleaning this space regularly and
Yeah, of course.
maintaining the space, and then we'll probably have a community manager checking in on this space occasionally. And then we actually today we're just testing a
Yes.
almost like a virtual assistant approach
Yes.
to management of the community where you can just hit a button on a screen and it takes you to Amy, our community manager in Staunton, and she's able to help you with whatever it is that you need.
Oh, super interesting. You were talking about many different kind of spaces. How many spaces do you plan to? Because they're not there yet, so it's all in the planning, right?
Yeah. Our hope is to have, yeah, I don't know, between 20 and 30 in the state of Virginia.
Ooh.
And if it goes well, then perhaps we'll expand beyond that. So we're uh, just taking it one step at a time, one co-working space at a time.
Yes, yes.
And right now we're working on two expansions actively, and we hope to do more soon.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you decide? Do you have a number you want for each year? Do you see the increase in member and say, yeah, we need so many more spaces? Or do you
Mhm.
see a very particular location? I'm like, oh, that's what we gotta go. That's where we gotta
Mhm.
go.
It's a little bit of all of those things. So we
Of
do
course.
we yeah, we do some market research around
Hmm.
areas that pique our interest.
Hmm.
So we might hear of a particular area that is has people gravitating towards it, in our client base gravitating towards that particular area, and then we'll go and explore it, talk to economic development, talk to the chambers of commerce or any sort of downtown development associations that those areas might have. And we do some research around the area. We see if a co-working space exists. We look at the population. We look at all sorts of different things. We look to see if there is a college or a university nearby, um, and what types of programs they have. So
Hmm.
there's a lot that goes into identifying where we will be next. And we
Hmm.
have a short list right now of areas that have
Yeah.
piqued our interest. So and then of course finding the right building. So
Mm,
sometimes the right building will attract us to a particular area, and then we do the market research around whether or not that area would be a good fit for our co-working space.
mhm. I'm wondering, have you shortlisted an area but then didn't find any building you were interested in? Does that happen? Or
Yeah, that um, I don't know if that's happened yet. Um, Actually, it has. It has happened once, but we're still interested enough in that area that we keep an eye out for the right space to open
yeah,
up.
you leave it on the wait until the right building appears.
That's right. Mhm.
Well, thank you very much. We're sadly heading towards the end of this. It's soon lunch break for you. And there's just one last question I wanted to ask is there anything else you want to add before we leave it here?
If anyone that is listening hasn't tried a co-working space, I recommend that you do so. And of course, all of the listeners and viewers are welcome to join us at one of our spaces. You
Hmm.
can find us at stauntonhub.com or harrisonburghub.com. And I hope to see you around.
Yeah, and if people do want to contact you and know more about your space or book a spot, what's the best way for them? Is it your website?
Website, yes, stauntonhub.com, harrisonburghub.com, or you can find my direct contact information on there as well.
I'll add the website in the comments so it's easy to find. Well, Hannah, thank you so much. It was very lovely to hear about your soon to be great expansion because
And thank you.
how many spaces? 20 to 30, is that right?
Oh, yes, hopefully, maybe one day. That's the big dream.
Planning. Yeah, dream big.
That's
That's
right.
what dreams are for. So,
That's right.
yeah. Thank you so much. And we'll catch up again in the comments.
Thank you, Fanny.